Yeah, everything around me.
What's going on, everybody? It's Coach Tatum. I'm here with Tony McCants. He's the head coach at McMichael High School here in North Carolina. Guys, this is going to be, we're recording this a little out of sequence right now, but this is going to be episode number 2, okay, of Coach's Preview. Uh, you've seen Coach Garrett Mills, my head coach, before this, so now we're going on to just guys that I know around the state. I want to get on here and preview some programs, preview some coaches. Y'all can get to know them. So, Coach, I appreciate you joining us and talking to us today.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So, Coach, talk to us a little bit about your coaching background. Who you are, and then where you've kind of coached, and talk about where you are now.
Sure. So I'm from a small town in South Carolina, right outside of Columbia. It's kind of similar to where I'm at now. When I travel the state and I tell people I teach and work at Mayodan, they say, where's that? And I got to say Greensboro.
Yeah.
So, growing up in Winsboro, go around the state, people are like, oh, where exactly is that? So I would say Columbia. So dead smack in the middle of the state. Winsboro is probably about, I don't know, I'm a little less than halfway between Columbia and Charlotte. So if you're traveling down 77, you're going to run through Fairfield County. Now, my little town, football crazy. We got 2 schools. We got a public school and a private school. Both are well known within the state of being, very good in football. And it's one of those places that on Friday nights when games were happening, town shut down. Also, too, we have an incredible track record of producing coaches. Good Lord, and myself included, I know of at least 5 or so other head coaches in North and South Carolina, just from a little small one-horse town. Mm-hmm. That's sort of an inspiration for me, having lived in an area like that, gone through something like that. Football becomes part of your culture. It becomes a part of who you are. And, you kind of want to pay that forward to younger generations. Having that lineage, having that legacy, so to speak, I wanted to play college football. I was blessed to have the opportunity to go to Averett to play offensive line. Only lasted a semester. I got hurt. And since I was so far away from home, I was homesick too. So I said, well, why not go back to University of South Carolina and be a regular student? Because that was been the first time I've done something like that since 6th grade. But not having, football as a part of me anymore at that point, I was looking for ways to get involved. And, fortunately I knew some coaches. And so I sort of put some feelers out, and, Kenny Ackerson, took a shot on me, and I was a JV offensive line coach at Richard Wynn Academy in 2006 while I was still pursuing my undergrad. Learned a lot from him. He's a great guy. I'm still in contact with him. I see him at the beach almost every year. So I've known him for a very, very long time. And then I was set to go work in a school district, during my master's program at the University of South Carolina. But, we had a little snafu. So I found myself at Richland Northeast just on a whim. I sent an email to Jay Fry, the head coach there, asked if he would take on a volunteer. That same day he responded, come talk to me. So I sent an email early in the morning, and by 4 o'clock, I was at Richland Northeast talking to him. We drove over to the district office, and my paperwork was in the shredder, getting ready to be gone. He was like, hey, man, perfect timing. It must be meant to work out. And so I spent a year there with him, learning, how, a big organization works. And from that, he helped me get my first job as a head middle school coach, fresh out of college for 2 years. I took over a little tiny program in Swansea, South Carolina, Sand Hills Middle School in Gaston. Kind of similar situation to what I have here at McMichael. Historically they weren't, doing too good, or the years before I got there, they weren't doing too good. And we were able to finish with an above 500 record for 2 years. But went through a head coaching change. I didn't, anytime that happens, there's always uncertainty. And I just didn't want to, stay in the middle school forever. So I put my resume out, and Chris Carter took a chance on me at Lake Marion High School in Santee, South Carolina. And made some, that was a pretty good move for me. Met some good kids, coached with some good coaches, coached some phenomenal athletes. and that helped me sort of learn things from a box perspective, like being up in the box. Also, it helped me grow as a coach because I was no longer doing offensive line. I was, now focusing on receivers, which gave me a little bit of a different dynamic offensively. And, also too, I was calling some plays here and there. So, it was like a co-coordinator role. So that really helped me sort of stretch my knowledge a little bit and learn from some other great coaches as well. Then I spent a year volunteering with the University of South Carolina with their defensive GAs. Got to know some of them. I thought at that point in my career I wanted to chase the college dream, but I just missed the day-to-day interaction with kids. I saw how difficult it was, and I was working for a vending machine company at the time, and it was just I was like, man, come on, I got to make a change. I got to get back in the classroom. I got to get back to having day-to-day interaction with young men, so that way I can, and I'll get into my coaching philosophy. Gets into my coaching philosophy later, so that way I can be there day to day to kind of help direct and guide some of these young men, and that turned out to probably be the best move of my life. In 2013, I went to Hope County High School over by Fayetteville, and we got hired as an offensive line coach. Started the day after spring break, which if you ever have to do that, it's rough. There's been a sub in the classroom, for pretty much the entire, semester. I get in there and try to teach, and they're like, "That ain't gonna happen, buddy."
Yeah.
So I had to try to find a way to kind of meet them halfway. So I, started after spring break, and then in May we had a successful spring, and I was there for 4 years. Coached a variety of things at Hope County: offensive line, linebackers, receivers. I was an outright coordinator there. But the reason why it was the best move is because that's where I met my wife. She's a teacher also. And you know how important it is to have the right person in your corner. And trust me, she gets it. She's the reason why I'm here able to talk to you today. And the reason why I'm able to do what I'm doing now. If I don't give, I can't give her enough credit. Because she's got a tougher job than I got. So I'm very grateful to have her, very grateful to have her support, because I really don't know where I would be without it. And so we, met her at new teacher orientation for the district. She sat right across from me, and I was, like, oh, why I got to be here? I was, hired in April. I already know all the rules and regulations. I'm assigned on my paperwork. I'm not a new teacher either. Like anytime you change districts, they make you go to those new teacher things. And so, because every district, has, it's almost the same thing, but it's like football, different terminology. It's the same thing, except some people call it different. But fortunately, I met her. She came to our first home game. We had lost, started the season 0-3. I was oblivious to she was interested in me. It wasn't until the next week we lost again, 0-4, and I was still oblivious because I was pissed we were 0-4. And my AD at the time was like, "Yeah, this cute little teacher, asked about you by name," and that's when I started to put two and two together. So, so I waited until Monday till we got back to school and found her in the email system. Working in a school district, you can type in a name. Mm-hmm. So I found her email, shot my shot, and here we are. Goodness, almost 10 years later. So, so that worked out pretty good for me. After Hope County, we decided to go back to South Carolina to be closer to family. And I actually had a chance to go back to my alma mater, Fairfield Central. Worked for Demetrius Davis, great dude. He knows a lot of people. He knows a lot of football, coaches at a high level. He had Fairfield in the state championship game, I think 3 or 4 years in a row, but they ran into the buzzsaw known as Dillon. That's sort of a household name in South Carolina as well. I was able to coach with my buddy, who was the OC at the time, and I coached offensive line. I learned a lot of the stuff that we do here from Demetrius and from Ryan, who, Nigel's in that same coaching tree, which you've worked under him. So we get a lot of the same philosophies, share a lot of the same ideas. But the drive was just too far. There were days where I wouldn't see my kids awake. I would go a whole week not seeing any of them awake. I would see Amy Lee, my oldest daughter, and that's my football daughter. Like she loves football. She's all about it every game. She doesn't want to miss it. So I would see her on Friday nights. My son was still really young, and it was a long drive. So my mom kind of watched him. It is, but I wouldn't see him until Saturday mornings, and that just kind of wore heavy on me. So I was fortunate enough to meet Dean Howell, who was the head coach at White Knoll. I went to church with him at Northside Baptist there in Lexington. He needed an offensive line coach, so I went to White Knoll and was their offensive line coach for 2 years. But I still felt like I was being pulled to have a larger role and to be a bigger leader than what I was being. And as a head coach, you get to touch every position group, so to speak. You get to, be in contact with every single person in your program. Whereas a position coach, sometimes you can kind of isolate yourself to that position. You may know some of the other guys, but you don't quite build, that deep bond that you do with your position group, unfortunately. Just because you're in it, like you're in it day to day with them, and you see the receivers over there with their coach working. But as a head coach, that allows me, sort of that clairvoyant hand, if you would, to use a big word there, SAT word of the day.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough. I went on a lot of interviews, got a lot of experience, got told no a lot. But all them no's don't mean anything until you get that final yes. And so McMichael finally decided that I was the guy they wanted. And so we've been up here since March 2020.
Awesome, Coach. Well, hey, like you've been around, you've been on offense and defense. That's going to prepare you for being a head coach. And so talk about your philosophy. You be coaching, you ain't got to get into X's and O's like that, but like coaching philosophy or just your personal philosophy when it comes to coaching.
Well, my coaching philosophy is take straight out of the Bible, Proverbs 22:6. Train a child in the way, so even when they're old, they don't depart. And that transcends the game to me. We want to make sure that we're instilling life lessons. We want to make sure that kids are able to understand and see the correlation between sports and life, because there's a great correlation. Sports is the great equalizer. It's one of those things where you have to learn how to deal with adversity. You have to learn how to work as a team. You have to learn how to put in work, how to be able to, your body's sore, you're hurting, you got to figure out a way to get it. Because when you get out in the real world, your body's sore, you got to figure out a way to put food on the table. You got to figure out a way to do this and that, support your family, support your wife, pay bills, things like that. So there's a lot of life lessons that I feel can be taught from sports. And so we use that as sort of an overarching and overall framework. In terms of on the field, we want to coach them, to use another kind of cliche I heard from one of my friends. We want to coach them until they can't get it wrong. And that's something that we did here at McMichael. I came in with this grand illusion we're going to be a spread RPO team. We're going to bang, 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 RPO, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
All the nice buzzwords. Everything that was good in theory. And then we got to the first game and we got absolutely embarrassed. And so I was like, you know what? We need to scale this back. We need to figure out what we can do, what we're good at, and not get bored with the basics.
Yeah.
And I think we literally ran one run play for 3 weeks. Like 3 consecutive games, and that helped us break a 23-game losing streak. And then once we were able to master that base play, boom, then we gave them another piece, and then another piece, and then another piece. And now we're in a position here at McMichael where we're just building on the offense. We got kids that have been in the system now, for 4 years. They're comfortable with me. They understand what I'm going to call. I got my quarterback in first period with me. We were talking about today what we would run in a, game-winning 2-point play. Because we were talking about the playoffs last year and somebody losing on scored a last-second touchdown, at the number 1 seed and stuff like that. Like, Coach, what are you going to call? Mm-hmm. And we sat there and we talked for like 5-10 minutes about what I would call, what he thinks I should call, what he would want to call. And it was all in our terminology. And we both were speaking, in simpatico, so to speak. We were together. We knew exactly what we were doing. And that comes from understanding the basics, not being bored with it, and then making sure that they get trained correctly and being coached until they can't get it wrong. Yeah. And that's what we wanted to do here too. We wanted to coach with passion. We wanted to be fired up about what we're doing. And with a place like McMichael that had been known for losing for so long, we wanted to make sure that teams knew they played a football game. Yeah. So we wanted to push the envelope. We wanted to be the more physical team. We wanted to make sure that when the buses left Mayodan or when our bus left whatever stadium, those guys were like, man, that was a football game. Like we're going to need some rest tomorrow.
So it's kind of this whole conversation is kind of special and unique because coaches, like I'm from Mayodan. I didn't go to McMichael, but I'm from that town, so I know everything he's talking about. And it's also because I'm coach in the conference that he's in, so we're gonna play each other this year. But I, I have a lot of respect for Coach and what he's doing with that program, and so and I consider us good friends. So I wanted to come on, have him on here. Coach, talk about you want to talk about the history, but talk about the direction and the overview of your program as you see it right now. Um, get as much detail or as little detail as you want, but how do you see McMichael football?
It's a lot. It's a lot healthier than when I took over.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, not a lot of people are going to say this. I think that COVID reset helped.
Yeah.
Some programs it killed.
Mm-hmm.
Some programs are still not really recovering from it. I think here, now I didn't mean that in any type of positive way. The pandemic was
Yeah.
terrible. Like,
Yeah.
because I know
Yeah.
somebody will watch this and be like, oh, but we started that spring season. We had 23 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we had two seniors. So that to me that helped because a lot of the seniors they checked out by the spring. They didn't want to play anymore. So we didn't have a lot of old habits that had to die hard.
Yeah.
We were able to take the juniors and sophomores and freshmen, and the freshmen that year are now seniors for us coming up. And we were able to kind of use them as, to use a Demetrius Summers quote, and it's not, not one of his, is one of his famous ones I like. It's a tabula rasa, one of his economic principles that he got. So, they were a blank slate, and we were able to take them and use them however we wanted to. And, being able to buy in, running the same play for 3 weeks in a row. You think a lot of seniors that are entrenched, they're not going to buy into that. And so, and when we started having success and they realized, then we scored a touchdown and then we started making these little tiny milestones. We wanted small attainable goals that we could build upon. And so that 23, broke a 23 game losing streak, won 2 games, went to the playoffs for the first time in, I think 2016. The following year, we didn't lose anybody. We lost 2 seniors. That was it. We didn't lose anybody. And we gained a whole new group of freshmen. So now we were up to 43. Now we're up to 41. Now, then we had a JV program for the first time in a long time. Usually the JV program was kind of butchered and was just fresh bodies for the varsity,
Yeah.
But we made sure to salvage the JV because we know, and most coaches would agree, that's the lifeblood of your program. You have to plan 3 to 4 years in advance. If you don't, I feel you're being very short-sighted.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we develop our JV players and that they learn properly and that we build the basics. Don't be bored with the basics. Just like I was saying, coach them till they can't get it wrong. And that's the easiest way to do it because, they're not handing out any type of trophies for JV. You don't have to worry about playoffs. You just pure development, That's where you let your coaches develop. That's where you let your players develop. You can do a lot of good through JV, and not having it was something that I think, sort of held McMichael back for a long time. So, I drew a hard line in the sand and said, no, we're going to play JV. We're going to play as many games as we can. I think we maybe missed 1 or 2 games. And that was, that was still when COVID was still happening. So either the other team had an issue or maybe we had an issue. I know that Carver game that year, we had to cancel that JV game because we had to pull most of our JV kids up so we could actually play a varsity game versus Carver. But we finished with a winning record on JV that year. We finished 7-4. McMichael, I think that's the second best finish the school's ever had in a regular season. Made the playoffs again, which was the second time the school's ever made back-to-back playoff appearances. So now the expectations are kind of set. And kids are saying, yeah, we can win at McMichael. We can play, we can have fun. So this past fall, we had close to 60, right at 60 kids come out for football, which in 2A ball, that's not bad.
Yeah.
2A ball, that's pretty good. So we had a full-on JV, full-on varsity. We didn't hardly 8-quarter any kid. I think we maybe had 1 or 2 kids that we 8-quartered. And, even in 2A ball, once again, that's still, something that you see a lot of teams do is 8-quartering. We just felt it wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary for some of the kids that we had deemed as 8-quarters. They dressed out for emergency purposes, and they maybe played a handful of snaps here and there on the varsity level. And you can always tell when you have a healthy program too, when some kids are asking for reps. Like we had some kids that we had up on varsity that saw they were 2 or 3 on the depth chart and they were like, Coach, can I go play JV so I can get reps?
Mhm.
Yes, son, you absolutely. We want you to develop. That's what we can do. And so we had another decent JV season this past year, and we went 7-4 again on varsity. Hosted the first playoff game since 2006. It's the second ever playoff game that McMichael's hosted. And the first time that McMichael's been to 3 consecutive playoffs, and first time back to back 500 years that I know of. So this year in the spring, we share a lot of athletes. So we were at the 30 mark, for a long period of time. And then we get our baseball players back and we're missing 10 of them and kids working and things like that. So we fluctuate here and there and we should have a good, ninth grade class coming in. So we're looking forward to having about the same numbers that we had last year. And that just comes from the community knowing your expectations, the community buying into what you're doing, parents buying into what you're doing, and trusting that you're doing your job as a high school coach so that way their kids keep coming out.
Last question for you, Coach. I'm gonna let you go. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is so we can highlight some players. Because
Right.
you're gonna have the 5 stars, the 4 stars, all whatever stars that get all the recognition. But I know players on my team or players on your team that they can ball, or that they're great kids, they're gonna have a great season, but no one quote unquote cares. This is your opportunity to highlight some of those guys that are hardworking guys, or guys that are going to contribute for you this year.
We have a lot.
Yeah.
Like being with our history, I think we're still vastly under recruited.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter, I look at it and I see, I see coaches stopping, 10, 15 minutes away. It's not even, not checking in with us. And, that's unfortunate for our kids because I think we do have a lot that deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we have a good running back. I think most people in this area know him. Jaden Moore, he's a big bruising bag. He's a big, powerful bag. Some really good natural vision. And he's the one that's starting to receive probably the most interest, from various levels. We have a decent quarterback, Jace Dunn, number 2. He's receiving some interest from some schools, but he fancies himself more as a baseball player, which I joke with him every day about being a baseball player. Because he could be a really good quarterback as well. We have an offensive lineman that's probably a touch undersized, but he's been a 4-year starter. Day one, 4-year starter. Then on offensive line, you have a kid start that many games for you. He's savvy. He's got some heavy hands. He's thick through the hips. He delivers a great punch. He's somebody that we're looking forward to having a great year, and his name is Emery Shaw. And he's somebody that I'm trying to get college coaches to look at, but he is a touch short. Just to throw that out there. We have a good defensive. Our defensive line's probably, hopefully, going to be our strength this year, and we got 2 guys on the D line that will be seniors that hopefully should have a breakout season. I know Hayden Meeks last year, number 70. He had 10 sacks. He's starting to pick up some interest. Chance Sides, number 89. Once he's got a good motor, and when it's going, he's a pretty good ball player. We have a kid that came out last year for the first time as a junior, played in the secondary for us, did a great job at corner, and his name's Cody Beck. So our wide receivers are going to have to earn it this year. They're going to be relatively new, and we got some seniors that that could potentially step into some good roles, and we're just going to have to see how they develop. Some of our receivers like Malik Callaway, Isaiah Belcher. We have a rising sophomore that we're going to really try to develop. His name is Braden Dalton. D line, going back to D line, we have a rising junior, Michael Vasquez. He works. That's probably the hardest worker we have on the team. He's in the weight room every day. He's gotten a lot stronger since last year, and he's what you really look for in terms of a kid that's going to put his head down and get to work. Mm-hmm. I mentioned our quarterback Jace. He has a brother who's also a rising junior named Brady Dunn. He's somebody that's going to factor into us as a linebacker and a fullback. So we use, I use fullbacks. So I don't make no bones about it. I even call them an F to make them feel good. We don't call it an H anymore here. We call it an F because I wanted them to get the idea that they're more of more in the backfield and can have the potential to carry the ball a little bit more. We may use those two guys a little bit more as an inline tight end as well. Don't tell Coach Mills that. But he'll see it by the time we get to y'all. Y'all have every film. Y'all
Yeah,
see
exactly.
everything. So it ain't gonna be tipping my hand or anything like that. So, and I know Coach Mills does a great job with the defense. So I know y'all be prepared, and we'll hopefully it'll be a better game than what it was last year. God,
no doubt.
Make sure that's always a hard question because you never want to leave a kid out, man.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that I named. Those are the ones that have been the most consistent in terms of workouts, most consistent in terms of coming to practice. The ones that I can see are doing the right things in the classroom, doing the right things in the weight room, doing the right things in the hallways. We really do have a lot of good kids here. We don't really have a lot of the quote unquote problems that some schools have. We got a bunch of hardworking kids. They're humble. They're great kids to be around. They make coming to work easy.
Yeah.
They make going to the practice field easy. I don't have to spend a lot of time trying to address the silly stuff. And doing all of the old school get them chopping. I can't tell you the last time I said get them chopping. Because to me it's wasting time sometimes. Sorry, daggone, we put in these motion lights. That's not to say we don't hold them accountable. We find ways to do it where we can still maximize our practice time.
I got you. Well, Coach, I appreciate the insight and into you and into your program. Everybody's watching these. Hey, we're having a bunch. I've already got like 15 guys already like, hey, let's do it. Let's talk. So, the coach is very gracious to come on and give his time right there at the end of the day before he gets to go home. So, Coach, I appreciate it.
Hey, and if anybody's watching this, if you're interested in learning more about what we do at McMichael, I got an open door, man. Like I learned everything from somebody. This community that we have as coaches, we were borrowing it from somebody. We learned it from somebody, so to speak. So if you go and watch any of our huddle film, or if you've played us or anything like that, and you kind of want to know a little bit more about what we're doing and how we're doing it, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter. It's probably not, I don't know, it says Paul in the Zoom, so you probably see it. Just look for Tony McCants or Coach McCants, and you'll be able to find me. Or you can find me in the school's web. Go to McMichael High School and find my email address that way. So don't be shy to reach out. I'll talk ball. Ian can attest to that.
Yep.
I'll talk ball anytime. If you want to talk ball, let me know. I'll meet you somewhere. You can come up here to me. Shoot, whatever. It doesn't matter. We'll talk.
No doubt. Well, Coach, I'm gonna head off to the high school and see what's going on over there, and I will catch you later.
All right, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Everything around me.